or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Brian Mendola, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the July 10th, 2026 issue of the Niagara Falls Review on the Niagara Frontier radio reading service. Let's get started. Our first headline: Public asks for patience with plan for wheel. Quote, "We're working as quickly as we can to resolve this issue." By Ray Spirty, the reporter. Niagara Park officials are asking people for patience as they demand the agency back off a Queen Victoria Park Ferris wheel proposal. Quote, "If I can just ask you, your readers, to give Niagara Parks the benefit of the doubt for the next little while," said Niagara Parks Chief Executive Officer Dave Adams. He continues, "Rest assured, we are working as quickly as we can to resolve this issue." With an alternative proposal now on the table, critics of Premier Doug Ford's controversial push for a large Ferris wheel on public green space at Horseshoe Falls are calling on the province and Niagara Parks to recede a request for proposals for such a development. The Premier's office has not responded to comment or emailed questions from the Niagara Falls Review. The Tourism Ministry office provided a general emailed statement acknowledged Harry Oak's HOCO Limited proposal to enhance its 20-year Niagara Sky Wheel, but it did not whether Niagara Parks requested for proposals proceed for a private sector to design, build, finance, maintain, and operate a, quote, world-class observation wheel in the park would no longer move forward. Said Adams, quote, "We just received HOCO's letter of intent on Friday, July 3rd afternoon. So we are in active review of the letter and its intent to understand what it means for the destination and what it means for all who are still open in active procurement. Quote, I'll be reporting back to the Commission this week in terms of what both implications and the opportunities are associated with the letter of intent, and then we'll be making a decision accordingly," end quote. "We are moving it as quickly as we can in terms of decision-making process. In the vicinity of Niagara Parkway and Murray Street, a second Ferris wheel would be a short distance from the Sky Wheel, which operated on Clifton Hill for over 20 years. Oak's proposed his alternative in July 2nd letter of Niagara Parks obtained by Niagara Dailies. He wrote he plans to expand and modernize the Sky Wheel to become the tallest observation wheel in Canada. Oakes said the approach can achieve the spirit of world-leading observation attraction, quote, without requiring government capital investment, without creating future operating costs to taxpayers, and without placing a massive new structure directly within Niagara Parks," end quote. An interview with Mayor Jim Doty said, "People got to trust the process and we're going to do the right thing." Unfortunately, there's a lot of rhetoric being thrown around and some of it's politically motivated. There's a lot of procurement process that's happening that we have to follow, and there could be liability issues. I don't speak for the Commission or anyone other than myself, but I am satisfied that Harry Oak's proposal is enough to end the discussion and the debate of the second Ferris wheel. I'm happy to support moving that forward with my vote. I don't speak for anyone else, but I'm confident that all will feel very similarly," end quote. Diode said an agency can't just recede an RFP process without doing its first due diligence. Quote, "You're going to expose the residents of Ontario to a potential lawsuit if you don't do things properly. There is a request for proposal procurement process in place. We're going through the process, but have some faith, and we're going to land in the right place," he said. Our next headline: Thorough hold providing residents with identity protection after cyber attack. Thoroughhold residents uh, Thoroughhold residents affected by cybersecurity breach are being notified by the city after hackers gained access to its municipality computer servers and obtained sensitive information. The city became aware of the breach on June 1st and immediately informed the community. Quote, the city has undertaken a detailed review of the data involved with identifying the individuals who may have been impacted, a recent city media release said. Quote, we are currently in the process of notifying all potentially affected individuals by mail, and they will be offered a complimentary credit monitoring and identity protection service through Equifax. Information about these services will be in a letter being sent out by the city. During these cyber attacks, hackers exploit vulnerabilities in cybersecurity systems, generally software vulnerabilities called zero-day exploits, which are unknown security vulnerabilities in software to make the susceptible to attacks. In the response to breach, the city said it acted promptly to mitigate damage and resorted its systems and services in a timely manner. The investigation conducted in a collaborative with external cybersecurity experts, which is now complete, and affected the systems of our network have been safely restored, said the release. Another way hackers gain access to the information system is through malware, malicious software that act such as viruses, trojans, and ransomware programmed to destroy, exploit, and distribute, or, in Thoroughhold's case, gain access to computer systems and its information. The city was able to minimize disruptions to residents and municipal operations, but did admit, quote, data containing personal information was taken from the city's network, end quote, during the cyber attack. We are implementing additional safeguards to future strengthen our cybersecurity environment, said the city. We will continue to work closely with law enforcement regularly and relevant regulatory authorities as appropriate. The release said the city acknowledged the complexity of the situation and the value of protecting and sensitive personal information, and takes its responsibility really seriously. We remain committed to the transparency and accountability and will continue to take the steps to strengthen our systems and reduce the risk of future incidences, end quote. Our next headline, $19 million for companies at both ends of the canal. Provincial grants aid Ontario shipyards and Allied Marine, by David Johnson, reporter. Ontario is investing $19 million to companies at both ends of the Welland Canal, both part of more of a $90 million, that's million with an M, investment to province's marine industry. A total of $11 million is going to Hamilton-based Ontario Shipyards, which operates Port Weller dry docks in St. Catharines. Allied Marine and Industrial and Port Colborne will receive $8 million under a Ontario shipbuilding grant program launched last year. Premier Doug Ford at the dry docks Wednesday said the investment will increase the resilience of Ontario's marine industry, supported thousands of good-paying jobs, and given businesses more ways to get their product to market. The funding will be used for skills training, infrastructure improvement, and new machinery and equipment, said the news release. The province will also expand its program to provide up to $64 million in future funding. Ontario Shipyards. Ontario Shipyards President and Chief Executive Officer Sean Paldo said the grant program is a transformative investment. Quote, it will level the playing field so Ontario can compete for major opportunities under Canada's national shipbuilding strategy. The federal government needs a shipbuilding capacity in Ontario, and Ontario shipyards, enabled by the program, will be critical to deliver that capacity, end quote. He said that $11 million investment will support construction of training at the recruitment vessel in Hamilton to attract and develop a new generation of skilled shipyard workers, while laying the foundation for the project at Port Weller. Ontario Shipyards has operations across the Great Lakes. Allied Marine. Allied Marine and industrial founder CEO Bob Mitchell said his company will be able to expand its commercial ship repair capabilities, modernize operations, and invest in skilled workforce needed to support Ontario's marine sector. On Welland's Canal East Pier, the company is expanding its facility to give more capacity to advance strategic partnerships and support continued based growth, including equipment upgrades, a clean fuel room, and a marine training simulator, it said in a news release. The building expansion and completion of the project is expected to wrap up by fall 2027. Port Colborne Mayor Bill Steele said an investment in Allied Marine reinforces the city's position as its leaders in Ontario's marine industry will create opportunities in future generations to building rewarding careers. Port Colborne, connected to the marine industry, runs deep. Our community has built around Welland Canal skilled trades and the people and businesses that keep vessels moving across the Great Lakes. Training vessel. Construction of the training vessel at Ontario's Shipyard Hamilton facility will be undertaken through the partnership with South Korea's Kawa Ocean, announced in February. Hanawa was one of the two companies bidding to build a new submarine fleet to replace the Royal Canadian Navy aging Victoria-class vessels. The other company was Kiel, a German-based Thykrupp Marine System, or TKMS, working with Norway. Both companies made commitments to support Canadian businesses to sweeten their respective offers. But Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Monday TKMS will be supplying the Navy with as many as 12 new submarines, resulting in Hanawa's Ocean saying it will be withdrawing from its Canadian industry partnerships, including Ontario shipyards. Paldo said construction of the training ship will continue despite its partnerships dissolving. He said it's possible for TKMS deal could bring some of the commitment or investment to Ontario shipyards, noting the local shipbuilder and Germans have conversations previously. The assembly of the training ship at Pier 15, when announced last winter, was expected to bring as many as 100 new jobs to the Hamilton shipyard. In June, TKMS placed an order with Acciaierie Valberna Group, and the Italian-based parent company of Welland's Bamburo ASW, for approximately 70 tons of non-magnetic submarine steel. The agreement enables for both parties to explore, develop, and implement cooperation in melting and production of the steel required for modern submarine platforms. The stainless steel produced at Welland's factory would be evaluated by TKMS to see whether it meets Germany's technical requirements and naval standards. Non-magnetic stainless steel prevents depth charges or mines from locking into the submarine's hull and reducing its deduction signature. You're listening to a reading of articles and features from the Niagara Falls Review on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is now 13 minutes past the hour. Next article: public ask for patience with plan for wheel. Do apologize for that. Stern wants to be the first local winery to build hotel, by Kevin Werner. The 30-year-old Stern Winery wants to become the first Niagara-on-the-Lake wine producer to hold an on-site hotel. Joe Will and Jane Langdon, owners of the winery at 1339 Lakeshore Road, have applied to the town for official plan and zoning bylaw amendments to allow for a 3-story, 58-room hotel and event space within the existing wine production building. The winery is for sale with a list price of $9.2 million. MPI Group, a real estate company, and 1199911 Ontario Inc. submitted planning amendments to town for approval. The plan included converting its cooking school into 16 hotel rooms while adding new structure to its main building to create a 42-room hotel. Planners said the vineyard will remain untouched and there will be no changes to the farming facility. Russell Jacobson, who is overseeing the project with his son Adam Jacobson for MPI Group, said the complex would be the first of its kind in Niagara and encourages visitors to stay in the area and learn about the winemaking industry. Visitors tend to stop at 2 or 3 wineries when they leave town, he said. People come up and stay for a while and get educated about it, about the project and Niagara wine. We want to team up with our farmers. Hotel at wineries exists in Europe. We want to be the first in Niagara to have it. Mary Feely, a senior planner of SGL Planning and Design Incorporated, said during the June 29th virtual open house, the expansion would, quote, enhance the experience of visiting the 3.96 hectare facility. It will contribute to the unique style. There will not be a lot of changes to the agricultural property. End quote. David Riley, a partner of SGL, said during the town hall on Wednesday's planning meeting, the proposal would, quote, continue the character of the property. He said the hotel sits within its provincial and town planning guidelines. However, area neighbors were highly critical about the impact the hotel would have on the surrounding area, citing traffic, noise, and daylighting problems. Robert Kirkhoven, who is the wife of Brenda, lives opposite of the winery, expressed deep concern about the motorists using 4 Mile Creek and Lakeshore roads. Being the biggest concern is whether the hotel would operate by the winery or a corporate chain. Quote, this is a speculative development, Kirkhoven told councilors. By adding the hotel will definitely change the volume of traffic. Adam Jacobson said Stewin Winery would operate the hotel. It will not be a chain, he said. Town planner John Federick in Niagara Region said in a traffic study for the proposal is not required. However, he said Niagara-on-the-Lake staff are examining whether any traffic safety measures would be needed. John Howley, president of the Traditional Neighborhood Development Incorporated, is building a 102 Hyatt-operated Clayfield hotel expected to open this year. He warned that allowing the winery to build a hotel under the agricultural use would prompt other wineries to seek similar requests. To accommodate the Stern project, developers plan to create a 178 parking spaces, removing the asphalt lot and replacing it with a granular area to allow water to soak into the ground. To accommodate the Stern project, the 2,785 square meter winery now features a visitor center with tastings, winemaking sites, and an underground barrel cellar, a wine boutique, and a restaurant. Town planning staff will bring a recommendation to the council later this year. Our headline: teen who reportedly stabbed man in Welland Park jailed 2 years. Allison Langley, reporter. Allison Langley is a news Niagara Falls Review reporter. A Niagara teen who plunged a knife into a man 6 times during an altercation in Welland Park has been sentenced to 2 years in custody. The difference between what happened that day and you being charged with a murder is sheer luck, Judge Cameron Watson said in the Ontario Court of the Justice of St. Catharines on Tuesday. Quote, you stabbed him a half dozen times. Any single one of those stab wounds could have killed him. Knives are exponentially dangerous. Stabbing someone 6 times is flirting with disaster. The 16-year-old offender, who cannot be identified under provisional law of the Youth Criminal Justice Act, was sentenced to 2 years in custody, followed by 12 months of community supervision. He was given credit for the time he had spent in pretrial custody, the equivalent to just less than a year and a half, which reduced his time left served about 150 days. On July 13, 2025, court heard Niagara Regional Police were called to home of MacArthur Avenue for a reported stabbing. The police initials involvement in the investigation determined a group of individuals had attended Bemis Park on Coventry Road. Court was told the offender, quote, in a unprovoked manner, pushed the victim to the ground and stabbed him multiple times in the sides and back. The injured man was able to flee to the nearby home for assistance while the other individuals ran off. The victim was rushed to a trauma care center where he underwent surgery to repair the lacerated liver. He was also sustained a broken nose and a collapsed lung. In a victim impacted filed with the court, the victim said that he struggles with shortness of breath and is in pain on a daily basis. He now takes antidepressants and is diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. In her victim impact statement, the young man's mother said she now lives in fear and has huge trust issues. Quote, the effect on the victim's family are profound and long-lasting, the judge said. The author of the pre-sentence report indicated the offender had demonstrated violent behavior to his family in the past, as well as towards staff at the secure facilities where he was being placed upon arrest. The offender was also banned from having weapons in his possession for 5 years. Our next headline, Man Who Beat Amputee Father to Death Awaits Sentencing, by Allison Langley, reporter, a Niagara Falls Review reporter. A man who beat his father to death in a drug-fueled rage will learn his fate this month. Blair Young, age 45, had originally been charged with attempted murder in July 2025 after emergency personnel found his father, Larry Young, in an apartment in downtown Niagara Falls. The 72-year-old man, amputee, was missing a leg and had sustained life-threatening injuries, including a catastrophic brain injury. He died a few days later in Hamilton Hospital, and the criminal charge against his son was upgraded to a second-degree murder. Blair Young pleaded guilty earlier this year to a lesser offense of manslaughter. At a sentencing hearing, Ontario Court Justice in St. Catharines on Wednesday, court was told the offender struggled with his mental health issues fueled by a drug addiction. Defense lawyer Andrew Frugally, who advocated for a sentence in the range of 6 to 8 years behind bars, said client's drug-induced psychosis was a catalyst for his crimes. But for the mental illness, this offense doesn't happen. Young had been struggling with homelessness prior to the murder. The court heard, and his father had allowed his son to move in with the escape the cold winter. Niagara Regional Police were called to Greater Niagara General Hospital on January 26, 2025, about a man who has been brought in with several injuries. A police investigation determined the victim had assaulted by his son. Injured man had likely been on the floor on his Buckley Towers apartment about 3 hours before he was discovered. The Crown is seeking a sentence of 12 years in the penitentiary. Blair beat his father to death using his bare hands, said Assistant Crown Attorney Sarah DePhillips. His father was 72-year-old amputee, and Blair was an able-bodied 44-year-old drug-induced rage. The Crown said the victim, who had been unable to defend himself, quote, this brutal and senseless beating, end quote. Judge Janet Bowie is expected to deliver his sentence later this month. Our next headline, Northern Shield Pipeline, a terrible idea. Last week's much anticipated announcement about a West Coast pipeline was bad enough. A taxpayer-backed boondoggle for a project in the oil industry itself has shown no interest in building. But on Monday, Doug Ford and Danielle Smith unveiled an even more head-scratching pipeline proposal to call the so-called Northern Shield. If Alberta's pipeline proposal was half-baked, this one isn't even in the oven. Setting aside the serious concerns about climate effects, environmental risks, indigenous rights, there are 3 basic problems with the idea. First, the economic case for the pipeline is non-existent. Northern Shield would require constructing 3,300 kilometers of new pipeline throughout Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. An undertaking would cost tens of billions of dollars. The minimum starting cost pipeline constructed largely along the route is proposed at West Oil Coast Pipeline is 35 billion, that's a billion with a B, dollars. What can Canadians reasonably expect the high price tag to be on a new pipeline 3 times as long? There's no plausible commercial case for the oil industry to finance a project of this scale, which helps explain why oil producers have has been silent ever since. The silence is telling. The Northern Shield appears to revive part of the canceled Energy East pipeline. Energy East was intended to move Albertan oil to New Brunswick for export, combining more than 1,500 kilometers of new pipeline with the conversion of 3,000 kilometers of existing natural gas pipeline. Even with the benefit of extensive exiting infrastructure, TC Energy abandoned the project back in 2017 amid changing market conditions, regulatory delays, and strong opposition, particularly in Quebec. Northern Shield would require far more construction than Energy East, making its economic case weaker still. But Daniel Smith, well, appears to be determined to pursue the same Atlantic export route that Energy East was intended to provide. Second, the industry doesn't have an incentive to pay for a costly new pipeline to Ontario when cheaper options exist to get their oil to market. Planned additional expansions to Trans Mountain and Enbridge mainline systems will bring sufficient capacity to even a federal energy regulator's most optimistic export growth scenario. And third, even if a hypothetical pipeline to bring oil to Sarnia, this additional oil does not have a market. According to Ford, the pipeline would bring more oil from Alberta to refinery facilities in Ontario. But as a former head of Alberta Petroleum Marketing Commission, Richard Mason, he said, there's no market for additional oil in Sarnia. So why are we hearing about another pipeline led by politicians rather than the proponents of funding by taxpayers? This is a harebrained scheme. Smith's strategies of flooding the zone with multiple proposals for new pipelines may make her West Coast pipeline proposal seem more feasible, adding pressure to the federal government to pony up its subsidies for fossil fuel sector. But don't be fooled. Creating the illusion of the momentum is not an industrial strategy. In fact, it is a costly effort to manufacture support for an industry with mammoth liabilities. Canadians are understandably anxious about the affordability, economic security, about our relationship with the United States. In moments like these, grand infrastructure promises can be politely attractive, but national building requires more than drawing a line on a map. It requires projects to solve real problems and deliver public value. Northern Shield does not do any of these things. It will not lower gas prices. It will not make life more affordable. It is unlikely ever to be built. What it could do is further normalize the idea that taxpayers should bankroll bad infrastructure ideas. Ontarians deserve investments to improve the affordability and prepare Canada for a low-carbon future, not another expensive political distraction masquerading as a national building. You are listening to a reading of articles and features of the Niagara Falls Review on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 29 minutes past the hour. Our next headline, Wealth Tax Could Transform World, by Linda McQuallen. Given the immense power of today's tech moguls, it's almost impossible to imagine a California labor union succeeding in its bid to impose a wealth tax on the state's high-flying billionaires. So it's heartening to know that something similar once happened. In the Gilded Age of the 1890s, the alt-right elite dominated America's economically and politically, with their fortress of wealth effectively untouched by the tax system. But things changed dramatically in the course of a few decades. The dodged efforts of dedicated reformers, workers, farmers, populists, progressives, academics brought enormous political pressure that eventually led to enactment of the U.S. economy. Indeed, for about a half a century, the U.S. had a distinction of leading the world in taxing the rich, an example of American exceptionalism, notably not celebrated last weekend. Although scorned today, America's robust taxation of the rich in the Middle East in the middle of the last century amounted to astonishing achievement in popular democracy with a huge public benefits. From 1930 to 1980, quote, the United States was a beacon of tax justice. It was democracy with perhaps the most steeply progressive system of taxation on the planet, according to University of California economics Emmanuel Sands and Gabriel Zuckman. Quote, in the 1930s, U.S. policymakers invented and then for almost half a century applied top marginal income tax rates of 90% of the highest income earners. Corporate profits were taxed at 50%. Larger states at close to 80%, as they noted. The revenue from those high taxes have lifted the country out of the Great Depression, financial massive New Deal spending on roads, bridges, hospitals, and other public works later in the 1950s and 60s, financing schools, quote, the schools that made America's productive and prosperous, funding public universities that are still in this day the envy of the world, said Sands and Zuckman. The triumph of injustice, as they quoted. However, in the 1980s, taxes on the rich have been deeply slashed, leaving today's America resembling its Gilded Age when Rockefeller and Vanderbilt lived kingly lives in the ornate New York mansions. But, as noted, the seemingly impermeable walls protecting the mega-rich from taxation with ultimately breached along with the dominance over society. So it's inspiring to recall how popular activism helped tear down those walls and to envision a similar transformation today. A backlash against today's wealthy elite appears to be brewing, with the election of New York Mayor Zohar Mamdani on a platform of taxing the rich, and the California Labor Campaign success is collecting 1.5 million signatures to get statewide billionaire wealth on the ballot next November. A national wealth tax could very well be part of the 2028 Democratic platform. Just as the U.S. badly needed an income tax in the last century, today in the U.S. and Canada also need a wealth tax on the super rich. A Canadian wealth tax could constrain the U.S. and the growth of a billionaire wealth and raise $40 billion, that's billion with a B, a year. So let's follow in the footsteps of the bold reformers of the Gilded Age who struggled against seemingly impossible odds and eventually prevailed, transforming the world. Our next article, it's Farage versus Count Binface by Gwendolen Dyer, a journalist of the London-based independent journalism. At the time of writing this, there is still hope for Count Binface can pull off a surprise by-election win and dethrone Nigel Farage, a leader of the Reform UK, who has led the opinion polls in Britain for the past 2 years. The danger is that monster raving loony party may also run, splitting the vote and letting Farage win. Here's the story so far. Farage is what is known in the wartime British slang as spiv, a flashy, fast-talking, petty criminal who always has some shoddy, borderline illegal to sell. For Farage is not actually a criminal. My lawyers have instructed for me to say that, but he has led 3 political parties: the UK Independence Party, the Brexit Party, and Reform UK, and they all smelled a bit off. They're all anti-immigrants, ultra-nationalist, and shyly racist, and they've all have used a populist tactics, as well as the style went global. Think of him as a Donald Trump that didn't inherit great wealth, but is a lot more coherent. And in due course, the rest of the world didn't catch up. His current political vehicle, Reform UK, has led to opinion polls for the past 2 years. By last April, it looked like it took four biggest countries of Western Europe were going to get hand right, maybe even fascist adjacent governments. Giorgia Meloni is already in power in Italy. Marine Le Pen in France and Alice Weidel in Germany are on track to victories next year, and Farage, seemingly a likely winner in the 2028-2029 year. Then suddenly, just a couple weeks ago, the wheels swelled off for Farage's chariot. A team of investigative journalists from the Guardian newspaper discovered that Farage had accepted a personal gift. How much? $6.7 million in US from Christopher Harburn, an expat British cyber crypto billionaire who lives in Thailand. It's not illegal to accept a huge gift if you're a politician, but it raises the questions about what the giver expects in return, especially if the politician doesn't mention it. And if you are a British member of parliament, as Farage is, you're obligated to report such gifts even from the year before you were elected. And he didn't. As often happens, that first revelation shook others loose. Farage now faces 4 separate investigations for various financial failings. He is downing in allegations so he can come up with a clever scheme. He would resign from his own seat, run for re-election, and then use that vote of confidence to distract people from the accusations against him. In the best populist tradition, he's using the people, or at least the people of his seat in Clayton, to destroy the elite. Quote, it's a chance to stick 2 fingers in the entire establishment to tell them where to go, said the man of the people. And it might have worked for him, except all 5 other British parties instantly said they would boycott his glorified opinion poll. And then Count Benfus spoke up, promising to make matters even more interesting. He's a comedian who frequently runs in a parliamentary election and by election somewhere not expecting to win, and shows up at the count wearing his high-tech garbage bin on his head. At this point, I must mention that the English are weird. When government said the people should not put a religion down as Jedi on census forms, 390,000 people reported that Jedi in the next census. When a government research agency asked the public to suggest a name of a new polar research ship, the overwhelming majority said it should be called Bodie McBoatface. How fun. So when Count Benfus is running unopposed against Nigel Farage, there is a genuine chance that Count Benfus can win, so long as howling loud hope of the monster raving loony party doesn't run too and split the anti-Farage vote in half. Farage got slightly less than half the votes last time, so it could happen. Our next headline, oblivious to harm, regarding the government failing evacuees letters of July 7th. No words. No words. At Niagara Falls City Council disparaging Indigenous people were out of context, not misconstructed, misinterpreted, or a split hair, as per the mayor's discrediting his apology. His ex-chief administrative officer wasn't simply reporting what he heard, he repeated racist comments seeing Indigenous people as unhoused, saying the comments represent what resides What residents think only expose how those amplify them to think. Not all residents think this way. Not all are racist. To amplify this racism so casually is the problem. Statesman by Kesh, Kesh, Keshkawin Nahawi Aski Nation, chief of Ontario Niagara Regional Native Center, explained the harm. They reinforce stereotypes and ignore that all Indigenous people have the right to be on their land. They aren't bright. They aren't a blight or burden. Settlers are ignoring treaty obligations. Niagara Falls chose to host evacuees. It wasn't unilateral. This on board Niagara officials. The Niagara Falls Pelham mayor defended the ex-regional chair for buying a signed copy of Mein Kampf, justifying it as a collector's item, oblivious to the connections to the genocide of the Jews. After regional council and municipalities to express support for Ukraine, Israel, and most councillors' refusal to do the same for many of Palestine killing, it's still ongoing, saying it's out of bounds and diverse, oblivious to all racist double standards. The only way we see comments out of context is the only way to see the ex-regional chair's autographed hate literature just as a collector's item, being oblivious to the racism around us. This article was by Salem Wurzone, a St. Catharines member of the Niagara Regional Anti-Racism Association. Our next headline, records will come and go. Regarding could Niagara Falls become a global capital of ugly sweaters? June 30th. They always have big plans or ideas, but they expect someone else to pay for it. Can't be such a great idea if you are not willing to put your own money. And if the plan fails, they don't care because they're out of a dime. Someone thinks Niagara Falls could become the global capacity of ugly sweaters. What would be the point? There is no benefit. What a waste of resources that could be used actually work at solving real problems like hunger, higher tax bills, and bad roads. Who cares about trying to set a world record? They come and go. Tony Rakudo of Niagara Falls. Our next headline, Team Canada, a winner. Even though Canada lost versus Morocco, this is the first time the players have got into the group of 16 in the World Cup. So they are a winner in my eyes. Martine Payne of Niagara Falls. Letters are welcome. If you would like to contribute, send them to letters@niagaradailies.com. NIAGARADAILIES.com, or mail them to P.O. Box 5031 STN, Main Street, St. Catharines, Ontario, L2R7T4. Letters should be 250 words or less and may be edited for length and clarity. Please include your name, address, phone number for verification purposes. Our next headline, Cherry Picking, Ukraine Festival in Weekend Spotlight, by Victoria Nicolau. Victoria Nicolau is a reporter of the St. Catharines Standard from July 10th, 2026. Roll out those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer and fill your baskets with a weekend of cherries, wine, and garden flowers. As it seems the extreme summer heat has taken a slight pause, it appears to be a perfect time to enjoy Niagara outdoors. Here are some of the ways you can have some fun this July weekend. Cherry picking. The cherry season is underway across Niagara and appears to it might be a short season, but there's no shortage of opportunities, with local farms inviting people to spend a few hours among the trees. Some options include 20 Valley Harvest is a fourth-generation family at 4235 15th Street in Jordan Station that specializes in pick-your-own cherries, sweet and sour. While some cherries have split, many more are still left to pick. For more information, go to 20valleyharvest.ca / pick your own / cherries in the number 2. Hildreth Farms lets visitors pick cherries daily from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 4685 Durham Road in Lincoln. For more information, go to hildrethfarms.ca. That's HILDRETHFARMS.ca. Parkway Orchards open June 10th in a new pick your own season of cherries, open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily at 15000 Niagara River Parkway in Niagara on the Lake. Duffin Apple Works opened last week and is expected to be open daily from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The farm store is open year-round at 1541 Rice Road in Fonthill, with plums, nectarines, apricots expected this month. For more information, go to duffinappleworks.wordpress.com #cherries. That's DUFFINAPPLEWORKS.wordpress.com / #cherries. Sweet and sour cherries can be picked at Cherry Avenue Farms at 4303 Cherry Avenue in Vinland. Crees in the Caribbean, a witty, touching play about Eve and Cecil Poundmaker, a Cree couple celebrating their 35th anniversary with the first trip abroad to Mexico resorts. Curmudgeonly, Cecil and spirited Evie are center stage in a comedy, but the play unfolds as a truly heartfelt journey as memories resurface as Evie gently pushes Cecil to seize the moment. Crees in the Caribbean was written by Drew Hayden Taylor and director Patty Shaughnessy. The story celebrates human connection across cultures, joy, love, and self-discovery. The show runs from Roseland Theater in Port Colborne through July 19th. Weekend shows are on Fridays and Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday at 2 p.m. For more information about the list of performances and get tickets, go to lighthousetheater.com. Winefest at the Exchange. Spend Saturday afternoon at the Exchange in the Niagara Falls for the afternoon of wine, music, art, and fun. The outdoor experience for those 19 and over bring together top wineries from Niagara and Okanagan Valley, plus workshops, art, painting, cheese and wine, games, food, and live entertainment. Wineries include Tyrus Winery, 30 Bench Winemakers, Peller Estate Winery, Black Hill Estate Winery, Sandhill Wine, Red Rooster Winery, and others. Tickets, price, and including admission and a commemorative wine festival tasting glass and 4 drink tokens. The event runs from noon to 5. For more information to purchase tickets, go to nfexchange.ca /about /Winefest 2026. Garden Center, Gardener's Garden Tour. Niagara on the Lake Horticultural Society hosts its 36th annual Gardener's Garden Tour on Saturday. Members open their gardens to the public for exploration and education. Visitors may speak to the garden owners and learn secrets of creating and maintaining their own garden spaces. This year's theme, personal stories, memories, and connection. Gardens Evoke. The event runs from 9:30 a.m. until 4 p.m. Various homes in town to purchase tickets and to read about Niagara Ukraine Family Festival. Spend the weekend at Fireman's Park in Niagara Falls and explore Ukrainian culture. The 2-day event features live concerts, dance performances, homemade food, cultural showcase, artists and vendors, children entertainment, raffles, and interactive activities, and other family fun, including face painting, games, and a splash zone. It runs Saturday at 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and Sunday 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Peel police call out man who dialed 911 over dirty hotel room. If you're upset with a dirty hotel room, Take it up with management. Don't call 911. It may sound obvious, but Peel Regional Police were cautioning the public about the improper use of emergency line after a caller dialed 911 to complain about a subpar accommodations. The caller, who wasn't identified, replied with an expletive when the operator questioned the urgency of the phone call. In a video posted on social media on Wednesday, Peel Police Constant Tyler Belmorea replays the call as an example of what not to call for when you call 911. Would you dial 911 for this? Belmorea asked in the video. When asked to explain his emergency, the man calls 911 replies, "So we rented a room and honestly, it's really, really bad. There's no ventilation. There's brrr on the walls." You've got to be kidding me. Belmorea interjects. The call continues. The 911 operator then states, "Sorry, you're calling 911 to complain about a hotel room you've gotten. The reason why I'm calling is they're not refunding our money," the caller explains. "That's still no reason to call the police," the operator says. Belmorea agrees, adding, "This is not appropriate to call 911 or the police at all. Contact the manager. It's not the police." At this point, a woman in the background says, "Sorry," on behalf of the caller. Whoever's with him is saying sorry. Even they know not to call 911. Belmorea notes. The 911 caller then turns on the operator. "You don't have to be rude about it," the caller snaps. "I have not been rude," the operator calmly replies. "Look, how you're talking to me right now, I'm calling 911, the caller argues. The 911 operator then politely signs off the call and says, "All right, you have a good night, okay?" Summarizing the encounter, Belmorea says 911 for a bad hotel experience put lives at risk. Callers should only dial 911 with life-threatening situations or a crime in progress. For non-urgent matters, callers can use the non-emergency line. Imagine being under your bed needing the police right now and you can't get to 911 because someone like this is calling over a motel room," Belmorea said, added to the video. "It's ridiculous." This isn't the first time Peel have cautioned the police about the improper use of the 911 system. Back in 2021, police said a man in a vehicle who needed to urinate called the police to report he was stuck in traffic. "The thing is that I have to pee and these guys aren't moving," the caller reported told the 911 operator. In 2024, Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown had asked his city staff to investigate whether fines or penalties could be used against callers for neglect the use of the 911 system and negligent for use of the 911 system. At time, Peel officers said up to 40% of the 911 calls for non-emergencies, including late pizza deliveries or noise from a sporting event. The region has since abandoned plans to fine 911 scalpers. In 2025, Peel received $637,645 911 calls, with nearly 16% identified as accidental or not emergency. Peel region said simple steps such as locking mobile devices, avoiding programming 911 into speed dial can reduce accidental calls. Parents are encouraged to teach children when and how to use 911, how to recognize a real emergency. If 911 is called accidentally, callers should stay on the line to notify the operator. This was done by Constance Tyler Belmorea. And that will be it for today, my friend. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the July 10th, 2026 issue of the Niagara Falls Review. We read the Niagara Falls Review every Saturday at 7 p.m. Your reader today has been me, Brian Mandola. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you listening to us at the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're located at 1199 Harlem Road, Buffalo, New York, 14227. That's 1199 Harlem Road, Buffalo, New York, 14227. Give us a call, 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Our radio reading service studios are located at 1199 Harlem Road, giving the blind a chance to read since 1987. Thank you folks for having a great day and a pleasant tomorrow.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service is Off Duty. At 9 o'clock, Sports Illustrated at 9 o'clock is The Athletic from the New York Times. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books. For nearly 40 years, radio reading has served people who are blind or have a print disability throughout western New York and southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service studios are located at 1199 Harlem Road. Please spread the word about your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. For more information, call 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability.